There comes a moment in your journey when something within you quietly but powerfully shifts. You stop chasing approval. You stop over-explaining your worth. You stop bending, shrinking, or softening yourself just to be understood by people who were never trying to truly see you. And suddenly, everything feels different. You're not angry. You're not cold. But something in your energy becomes unmistakably clear. I'm no longer available for what drains me. People may sense the change, even if they can't name it. Some may pull away. Others may project. But you feel lighter, clearer, rooted. Carl Jung wouldn't call this arrogance. He'd call it individuation, the sacred unfolding of becoming your whole, authentic self. It's not about detachment from love, but about releasing the roles, stories, and systems that once kept you bound. It's about becoming sovereign in your soul, aware of your light, honest about your shadow, and no longer handing out access to people who only ever wanted the performance. So what really happens when you become unattainable? Not out of pride, but out of peace. Let's walk through it together. Being unattainable isn't about being cold, distant, or playing games. It's not a strategy. It's not a power play. It's not about making others chase you. It's a spiritual shift, an inner evolution that happens when you finally stop outsourcing your worth and start honoring your truth. Carl Jung taught that the true goal of life isn't to appear good or likable in the eyes of others. It's to become whole within your own soul. That wholeness doesn't come from perfection. It comes from integrating every part of you, even the ones you were once taught to hide. When you begin to integrate your shadow, when you set boundaries without guilt, when you stop betraying your own energy to make others feel comfortable, you start living differently. You become deeply grounded in yourself. And that energy doesn't resonate with people who still operate from control, neediness, projection, or codependency. They can't find their old access point to you because it no longer exists. This isn't ego, it's clarity, it's alignment, and it's the start of something sacred. You becoming unavailable to anything that doesn't honor your truth. You're not doing anything dramatic. You're not raising your voice, cutting people off, or making grand declarations. You're simply living more honestly. You've stopped over-explaining. You've pulled back from over-giving. You no longer rush to make others comfortable at the expense of your own peace. And yet, people start to pull away. They say you've changed, that you've become cold, distant, or hard to read. But what they're really feeling isn't your rejection. It's the loss of the old version of you that kept their ego intact. Carl Jung spoke of this transformation. He warned that as you begin to reclaim your energy and withdraw your projections, others often struggle to relate to you. Not because you've become less loving, but because you've stopped mirroring back the roles they needed you to play. The people who were once comfortable with your over-apologizing, oversharing, and self-abandonment now feel exposed. Your new boundaries disrupt their unspoken expectations. What they once called connection was often control, and now that control is slipping, so they call it distance. They call it disconnection. But the truth is, you're simply no longer available for one-sided dynamics. This is what happens when you begin to truly individuate. Your presence becomes a mirror, reflecting back to others what they haven't yet owned in themselves. And some people don't want to see that reflection. So no, you're not triggering people because you're doing something wrong. You're triggering them because you've stopped doing what kept them comfortable. And that's not rejection. That's growth. The draining friendships, the one-sided relationships, the endless pressure to please everyone and avoid conflict. Suddenly, all of it feels exhausting. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, undeniable way. You don't have the energy to keep explaining yourself. You don't feel drawn to gossip, small talk, or chaotic dynamics that leave you emotionally bankrupt. It's not because you're bitter. It's not because you think you're better than anyone else. It's because something deeper has shifted. You've tasted clarity, and once you do, there's no going back. Carl Jung would describe this as the moment you begin withdrawing your projections. You're no longer seeing others through the lens of your unhealed wounds or old patterns. You're seeing things and people as they actually are. And when that happens, the roles you used to play, caretaker, fixer, peacekeeper, the one who always says yes, no longer fit. The mask starts to feel heavy. The dynamics that once defined your relationships now feel suffocating. You're not trying to distance yourself from people, but when their energy requires you to abandon your truth, you quietly step away. Not out of resentment, but out of reverence for yourself. It's a different kind of peace, a peace that no longer comes from being liked or accepted, but from being aligned. And as that low-frequency energy begins to fall away, you realize you're not losing anything important. You're just making room for what's finally in tune with your soul. Something begins to shift, and others can feel it, even if they can't explain it. You're no longer chasing approval. You're not trying to be understood. You've stopped filling the silence with nervous words or oversharing just to feel seen. Instead, you move with a quiet confidence, a grounded peace. You say less, but your words carry more weight. You're no longer performing, and because of that, your essence starts to speak louder than anything you say. This isn't about being mysterious in a calculated way. You're not hiding. You're just no longer available for the old patterns of people-pleasing or emotional overexposure. You're not trying to be liked, and somehow, people are more drawn to you than ever before. This is what Carl Jung meant when he spoke of the self, the fully integrated, individuated version of who you truly are. When you begin aligning with that core essence, you don't need to be loud or flashy to make an impact. Your energy becomes magnetic, not because you're trying, but because you're finally being. This is the power of energetic sovereignty. It's not charm, it's not charisma, it's authenticity, and it resonates. People may not know what's changed in you, but they feel it. There's something in your presence that calls others to rise, to reflect, to meet you on a deeper level. Because without even trying, you've stopped being relatable and started being real. Something powerful happens when you stop chasing love. You stop attracting people who expect to be chased. When you no longer seek validation to feel whole, you naturally stop drawing in those who withhold approval as a way to control you. Without even trying, your energy shifts. And that shift becomes a boundary all on its own. Suddenly, the people who once fed off your self-doubt, your people-pleasing, your need to be chosen, they fall away. Not because you pushed them out, but because your new frequency no longer feeds their patterns. Carl Jung believed that as you begin to integrate your inner world, your outer world transforms to match it. When you become whole on the inside, you're no longer a match for relationships built on fragmentation, confusion, or emotional imbalance. You stop losing people and start shedding illusions. The ones who couldn't meet you in your truth were never really seeing you in the first place. And now that you're no longer trying to be understood by people who aren't meant to understand you, something remarkable happens. Space opens, and into that space, new people begin to arrive. People who value emotional depth, who meet you with honesty, who don't fear your wholeness but honor it. You're not being abandoned, you're being aligned. And as the wrong people exit, the right ones don't just enter, they recognize you. Because now, you're not dimming your light to be loved. You're finally being loved for the light itself. You used to feel the need to explain yourself. When you said no, you'd follow it with reasons to make it easier for others to accept. When you took a break or needed rest, guilt followed you. You constantly looked outward for reassurance, checking if you were enough, if you were doing the right thing, if you were still acceptable in someone else's eyes. But something changed. Now, you simply know. You know when something isn't right for you. You know when your body needs rest. You know your value, without having to perform, prove, or explain. And that knowing isn't coming from others, it's coming from within. Carl Jung called this individuation the process of becoming whole. It's the moment you stop being shaped by external expectations and start living from your own truth. You no longer look outside for confirmation of your worth. You've built that understanding from the inside out. Your sense of self is steady. It's no longer something others can influence. validate, or take away. And that is what makes you truly unattainable, not in a distant or prideful way, but in a grounded and unshakable way. You're not seeking approval. You're not adjusting yourself to fit. You're simply anchored in who you are. And once that happens, you stop bending for acceptance because you've already accepted yourself. To those who haven't done the inner work, your growth can be confusing. To someone unaware of their own patterns, your evolution may look like ego. To someone insecure, your silence may feel like judgment. To someone emotionally dependent, your new boundaries may feel like abandonment. But that's not what's happening. You're not turning your back on others, you're just finally refusing to turn your back on yourself. You're not being cold, you're being clear. You're not shutting down, you're becoming more intentional. You're not detached, you're learning to discern what truly deserves your energy. This shift can be deeply misunderstood, especially by those who benefited from your old patterns. The version of you that overexplained, overextended, and overlooked your own needs. But that version is no longer available. And that's not selfish, that's sacred. If you've reached this point, it means you've done something few ever do. You've confronted your shadow. You've stopped running from discomfort. You've reclaimed the parts of yourself you once disowned. You've chosen to live in alignment with your truth, even when it makes others uncomfortable. Carl Jung believed this kind of transformation required deep courage, because it means standing fully in yourself without apology. It means living from the inside out, not the outside in. This isn't about superiority. It's about sovereignty. It's not ego, it's integration. And it's one of the most powerful, misunderstood shifts you will ever make. When you reach the point of becoming unattainable, it doesn't mean you've hardened. You haven't lost your compassion, your warmth, or your capacity to love. What you've lost is the tendency to abandon yourself in the name of connection. You're no longer sacrificing your well-being to maintain relationships that ask you to perform or play a role. You're not walking away from love. You're walking away from the illusion of love. Love that was conditional. Love that depended on your compliance. Love that only existed when you were convenient. What remains now is real, and what no longer fits simply fades. There's no need to explain your shift to those who don't understand it. You don't have to justify your peace, your clarity, or your distance. When you are truly aligned, your energy will speak louder than your words ever could. This isn't a retreat from connection, it's an elevation. You're stepping into a new way of being, one rooted in truth, not approval, one where resonance replaces performance, where depth replaces duty. You are no longer available to the noise, the drama, the manipulation, or the guilt. Because you've tuned into something far more powerful, your soul. And once you're living from that place, everything changes. Not because you tried to change others, but because you finally honored yourself. This isn't an ending. It's the beginning of your most authentic life. If these words helped you find language for something you've been feeling deep inside, something you couldn't quite explain, you're already further along than you think. You're not lost. You're awakening. And you don't have to walk this journey alone. Subscribe to the Jungian Depth, a space where we explore what it means to evolve not just intellectually, but soulfully. Here, we go beyond surface-level growth. We dive into real transformation, rooted in power, grounded in grace, and anchored in wholeness. You're not too much, you're not too distant, and you're definitely not broken. You're simply becoming, and in that process, you're stepping closer to the self you were always meant to be. So stay with it, stay with us, because the path gets clearer and deeper from here.